And here we are. It's day 2 of reInvent. Is it day 2 or 3? I've lost track already.
It's like day 37. It feels like anyway. So yeah, I can't even keep up. It's insane. And Adam, how many reInvents have you been to?
A lot. So I want to say 6, 7.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I went to the first one, but I think I've been to all the ones since then. And each year it's just like it's more and more and more to keep up with. And, last year was just so overwhelming and I thought, oh, this year it's going to be virtual. I'll be able to sit on the couch and watch things and it's going to be so much more relaxed and so much easier to take in. No, I mean, in fact, no, that is not the way it works. There has been a ton of stuff released, and just among the containers team alone, there's been a ton of new releases and new features. So we're here to talk about I think one of the really big ones. It's Ecr Public. So who do we have with us?
Yeah, say hello, fellas.
Yeah,
let's start with you, Omar.
Let's have you guys introduce yourselves.
Hey, everyone. My name's Omar. I'm the product manager for Ecr. So
nice. Good to meet you. And Richard?
And yeah, I'm Richard. I'm an engineer on the Ecr team.
Awesome. So, Omar, I caught your reInvent session yesterday, and what was the big reveal? What was it all about?
Well, I have to say though, it's a little odd doing these sessions when you're talking to many people, but there's nobody in front of you. It was very odd. You tend to feed off the energy of the crowd, of the audience, and work with that, and I missed that. But it was Ecr Public. It was what we were building for. It was the expansion of Ecr for public images and the gallery. Where anybody can go search, find, pull images. That was fun. I really liked talking about what we had to do under the covers a little bit to make that happen.
Yeah.
And I think that would be fun to poke at through the show. And
yeah,
Richard can reveal some of that as well. So
it's really funny because on previous shows, on previous containers from the couches, we've talked about, managing images, running a registry, doing a pull-through cache. And when we talk about it, in fact, I'm thinking back to the pull-through cache episode where we just brought up, Docker registry on Fargate. And it was fun. And we ran a big Fargate instance. And
I remember that.
I'm like, yeah, cool. Now, if you want to productionize this, you can do these additional couple of things. But take that and apply it to AWS scale. What does it take to build a registry for the AWS customer? I mean, it's not just running a couple of containers on Fargate, right? There's more to it than that.
Yeah, I think so. And the funny thing is, until you get down the journey of doing a whole expansion of this nature, you don't grok really what it takes. And then the more you do, and sometimes I'm just baffled by what Richard and Chandru and the entire team has to deal with, right? Dashboards and operational this and microservices that, VPCs here, different accounts there. And I'm thinking, oh my good Lord, right? And then you have to add all of that with your full CI/CD pipelines and then the way you want to ship at scale. And we all know this, but AWS gets really big on multi-regional contained sections. And so you start thinking about, okay, just stating, we will geo-replicate for your developer. And then you're like, what does that actually take to do? And so, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Go ahead, Richard.
I was just going to comment that, as part of our engineering process and as we prepared Ecr Public for launch, we went through this process where we would ask each other, okay, what are the things in the service that are going to keep you up at night that you're not like really comfortable with going live? and we'd go after that and then start trying to polish those edges. And it was really about trying to build our service in a way that we could just like feel comfortable at night, that it's something reliable and trustworthy that the customers can use.
Yeah.
So it was just a really interesting process to go through in our head.
Yeah. I mean, I just can't even imagine. What were you going to say, Adam?
Well, it's just, we oftentimes we have these kind of foundational services, right? Like I would consider ECR a foundational service. It's used across orchestrators. And even if you're not using an orchestrator, you're pulling from a registry somewhere. And it reminds me of S3. Like S3, we just announced very quietly, we announced this, we went from eventual
strongly consistent.
Strongly consistent.
Oh my
and
God.
It's, if you think about the scale that we need to run at, and then we just announce something like this, like it's very easy to look at this from the outside and say, yeah, hey, I've been wanting this finally. But to really think about everything that goes into building this and maintaining this, there's so much. And, Richard, the engineers don't get enough love, but you folks are really amazing for all the things you build and that you're maintaining. So big thank you to you folks, you and your team, and all the engineers that are keeping AWS, awesome. So I just
no
wanted
doubt.
to mention
Oh my
that.
gosh, yes. And I cannot even imagine the production responsibilities. Adam and I, we used to, carry a pager, be on pager duty and be on call, take rotations and have to dive in and do things at night when something breaks. And I can't even imagine having to do that at an AWS scale. So like, yeah, well done. And I'm so glad to see this service out because our customers have been asking for it, like crazy, especially lately. So, being able to deliver on something that, is clearly going to resonate with customers is just an awesome feeling. So, our resident intern, Alex Smasha, welcome, Alex, by the way. He wants to remind us it's always day one. I think in reInvent terms, it's always day 37. It's always like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And then link to the public gallery, gallery.ecr.aws. And then, yeah, we already have 596 repositories. So it's still super early, but yeah, people are already starting to adopt this thing. And that's the other funny thing about when you launch an AWS service, you don't know what day one adoption is going to be. Like you have no idea. It could be 10 or it could be 1 million, and you just don't even have a clue. So you have to be ready for that, that upper echelon just immediately. You can't think, oh, we'll grow into that over the course of the few months or whatever. No.
But so while we're on the topic of, so we're going to demo this. I'm going to walk through it and demo it, but I feel like before we demo, why don't we talk about what you folks have built, Omar, what your team has built. And you have a really cool slide on the architecture. I think that would be cool to show off and explain, the reliability, high availability, and how we've considered those aspects when building ECR Public.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, let's do that. This is, if you haven't caught the session yet, which Brent was referring to earlier, I think it streams twice more over the course of reInvent.
And the session ID is EMB004, I believe?
Yes, it's embargo 004. Is that what it is? And I think I've got a link to the actual hit in the reInvent catalog, and you can find that. But this slide's really fun to talk about, because what we're trying to show here actually is that we've got many customers who use ECR at scale today, and that's great. In order to take that and then put the things and the features and the capabilities that developers need from a public registry, right? Because think about it, you want really quick, easy DevX, right? So you want to be able to say, I want to do a push, or I want to do a pull, give me a simple URL, and in this case, characters start to matter, right? But if we go out and say, oh yeah, we will geo-replicate for you well, now you're hitting one point which has to proxy to two other points. If one happens to be unreachable or slow, switch to the other point. And on the back end, these images are getting replicated. So let me just walk you through that. What we ended up having to do with the entire engineering org ended up doing was creating a single global URL, which means you do a Docker push to public.ecr.aws, and that front end is going to send it to the primary or nearest region, right? That in and of itself was a second capability to be able to say, hey, let's go do that. The third thing we had to do was cross-region replication, transparent to the developer, right? And this is where we also talk about in our pricing is, you give us the image. If we choose to put it in 2 regions or 4 regions, that is, don't worry about that. Don't worry about how we deal with that. We'll take care of that. And that was a core part of the reliability, high availability story, which is that most of our customers wanted. And then finally, because you're going to pull from a global URL and it's anywhere in the world, it made sense to put a cache in front, right? But even there's this nuance that says, just cache the layers of the image, not the manifest file. So the moment some developer pushes a new version of latest, you can always get the newest SHA. That comes to the fleet. You redirect to the cache, which then says, oh, do I have it or not? And then go get, again, pulls that from the origin S3 bucket. So in and of itself, these are big things, right? And we put all 4 of them together, and then so it was fun. I was really happy when I had to do this because I was like, oh my God, look at everything you did.
And when you look at, like you mentioned, you just kind of tossed out there cross-region replication, but
I did.
That's not something that we have in ECR. So
yet. Correct.
Okay, good. Because I was like, hello.
No, it's a great point. It's one of those, oh, wait, are you saying yes? Well, so it's something we've been wanting to do for a while. It's on our public roadmap. This is just straight cross-region replication for customers' private repos, right? It's close. As with anything, we'll know when we ship it, but we wanted to use it and dog food it. And I think Richard and a couple other engineers did a lot of work to make sure it would work on the private repository scale, and then starting to bring that over here.
Nice. Yeah, that's really awesome. Looking at these boxes on a slide, it still looks pretty simple, but I just can't imagine behind the scenes, the kind of infrastructure at play that's managing all of this. So this is awesome.
And by the way, so before this was announced, though, right? ECR on the back end, we store our images. We store in S3, right?
Yeah.
So we're inheriting high availability from S3.
Yes.
Because S3 behind the scenes has its own replication across availability zones. So you already are taking advantage of that. And now we add this additional replication cross-region. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I think that was a really fun part about building ECR Public, because we got to look at our past 5 years of operating private ECR at scale and kind of capture all of that wisdom and figure out how we can use that wisdom to build a similar but kind of different service, and make it even more available for our customers.
Nice. So I was thinking back, I think it was a year ago. Now I've been on the container services team for a few years now, and it was like a year ago that a customer reached out to me and said, hey, I'm having trouble pulling this image from ECR, and sent me an error message. And I started looking at it, and I'm like, yeah, pull's fine for me. I don't understand. I was doing it in Cloud9, which is obviously, I use Cloud9 a lot, which is EC2. They were actually using an on-prem Kubernetes cluster that they had built, but they were trying to pull an image that, if I'm remembering this correctly, it has been a year, but it was a Docker container that we list in our documentation for doing something. I don't remember what. Maybe it was even I'm not even going to guess, but they were pulling it from ECR, and it wasn't working because they weren't on an EC2 instance. So they weren't in AWS, they were just in their own data center. And it took me forever to realize even that we weren't offering the ability to just allow public pulls from regular ECR back then. So because I just always counted on the fact that yeah, I can pull an image, and we list, we were listing images in our documentation and stuff like that, and it just seemed totally normal. So that's when it started to dawn on me that we don't offer, there's more to just offering public images, like running the gallery, for example. But even if you just want to host your own private or your own public image using regular ECR, you haven't been able to until now, because there's a whole world of people, of compute that's not on EC2 or not in AWS, and they didn't have the privilege, they didn't have the rights to be able to authenticate and pull from an ECR repo. So that's different. That's new. And what does that open the door to now? Well, I was just noticing that I was setting up for, if you saw yesterday's show, I was setting up for a demo to demonstrate Proton. And as I was doing that, I was doing a Docker build for one of my ECS demo front-end applications. And when you do a Docker build for it, it pulls from Ruby. So the Ruby library image on Docker Hub, and my CI pipeline actually broke because I had reached a limit and I couldn't pull from Ruby anymore. So I think there's a whole world of things to explore with ECR Public. And so today I actually went through the process to convert over to using a Ruby image that's now available on ECR Public, so that I could continue to build without worrying about my pipeline breaking. Pretty cool.
That's great. I should take that quote and spread it so every developer knows. Look, but yes, that really is the main reason to do something like this. And it's it's slow, right? You put it out there, you get new content, you have to add to the community, you have to support the community. There's a lot we can do there, but that ultimately is where we needs to be, right? You should just be able to go there. So
let's look at the public gallery, huh?
Let's do it.
Yeah, go for it.
So yep, thank you. So by the way, to access the public ECR Public Gallery, it's just gallery.ecr.aws.
Yes.
And yeah, so one thing that really that I found really cool is it's just a very clean, nice UI, and I can drill down into specifics. So I will demo at some point. In a few minutes, I'm going to create an image and we'll push it. But looking at the public gallery, I can drill down into verified images. So, Omar, can you maybe briefly explain how does an image get verified, and what does that mean for me as someone who's pulling an image from ECR when I see a verified account? What does that mean?
Yeah, for sure. Good question. So, in fact, if you want to do a quick search and just search for Amazon Linux, or in fact, search for the new EKS distro stuff, right? What we announced yesterday, and that's a good example of what we wanted to do with verified accounts. So anybody can publish, right? And one of the core parts of what ECR Public wanted to do was have very little friction in letting somebody share and collaborate. You get lots of stuff, right? We also wanted to make sure that when a developer came to look for images, that they could zoom in and get a quick view of what they were really, really looking for and what was important or valuable or quick. Like, for instance, take the EKS distro. Anybody can create anything with an EKS distro name, but you wanted to make sure that if somebody says, I want the EKS distro images that AWS publishes, the verified account badge is precisely that. It is a way for ECR to state, we know this account, this AWS account that's publishing it. It has, they've told us, yes, we own this image. We do some check on the background. We actually leverage some information from the AWS marketplace, in fact, because they have this mechanism where they go up and check teams and AWS accounts. At heart, it's to be able to tell a developer browsing the gallery that this account is more trusted, this account is publishing something that they, in many ways, own. So if somebody cloned core DNS and put it up there, we're not going to verify that, for instance, right?
Yeah,
that
so
makes
that
sense.
we know that EKS distro, this is EKS distro, and that's what that is.
And I think I even have an example. Perfect. Like here's an example of someone created what appears to be a Docker and Docker AWS CLI. So I imagine this image is actually a Docker image that runs the Docker version of the AWS CLI. But anyways, this is not verified. Someone created it, and I could pull it down and use it. But that's kind of almost at my own risk there, because I don't know who this is.
Right. And that's what you want to be able to do. This is a distribution service for anybody to collaborate. So you have to let anybody go as quickly and as they can. And here you go. Oh yes, the Lambda announcement yesterday, which was really nice.
Yes,
they're there as well. So yeah, that's what that is.
And just looking in the UI, I mean, really clean. But this is all Markdown, which I'll show when I actually create. But I love Markdown, and it's nice that I can build a nice little README to explain the about, and same with usage as well.
Yep.
And then image tags, and a really nice little way to just copy that, and I can then, if I were to go here, just Docker pull. This is an anonymous pull, and I'm able to pull. And by the way, that speed's pretty awesome. This is one thing I was watching. It's pretty quick. But yeah.
That's a Java image, so it's going to be a little,
Right. Well, of course, I picked the Java image, right? Like I picked the heaviest.
Ruby might give it a run for its money.
That's true. And no knock on Java or Ruby. I'm just saying it's a little.
We can knock on Ruby.
It's a little heavier in size.
No knock on Ruby.
Oh yeah, I mean, I used it, so I get to knock on it a little bit.
There you go.
Yeah, and real quick, while we're talking about the discovery piece, I think one of the things I'm really interested in learning from the community is what other facets or segments would be valuable. Like the main point of the gallery is to help people find the images that they need in production right now and know that it's from a trusted publisher. And so, yeah, I spent all of last night trolling Twitter, trying to find out like what other things can we add to this discovery experience to make it easier for customers. So yeah, totally reach out if there are any other ideas here.
Alex Masha had one idea, just missing a nice exclamation mark that pops up when you pick a non-verified image. So that might be something, and maybe it's not just anything non-verified, but what if a name, the name of the image matches one that is verified?
Yes.
That could be one. That could be a case where you might want to sort of highlight that this is a non-verified image, even though there is a matching name out there that is verified. Might be worthwhile. So
that's a good point. And also, when you look at the URL for the image, so this is Datadog's image. It's verified. I go here, I can see it's public.ecr.aws. So that's always going to be the URL. Then you have, what do we call this? Is it namespace, or what is
alias? We call it an alias. And that's a good segue into the alias world, because when you have to have a way to let something, a way for the URL to access an object, in this case, the Datadog image, regardless of which region it's actually going to get served from, regardless of what AWS account they actually used to publish this, into the management console. So the alias is that mechanism. And if you just go and create, and you'll probably see it in your demo, you just create a new repo from the management console, we're going to give you a default sort of, alias. And it'll always work. Like you can see it down there, the W1H.
And the truth is I wanted to have that be fresh for the demo, but naturally prior, I just wanted to test something, and I wound up creating one anyway. So, but had I not created the alias, the experience for the user would be, you'd create your image. Alias would not exist yet. And
Correct.
Then once I create the image, behind the scenes, ECR is going to create an alias for me.
Yes. And that stays for the life of your account. And when you, like Datadog, went off and asked for a custom alias, which you can do inside the console, we create a custom alias for Datadog and approve it, and that becomes the way anybody can interact with the image. You can push to it, you can pull from it, but the default alias still also stays. No, that's
Oh, nice.
And I think this is a good chance to share about, I guess, Uma's very deep like customer insistence, because at the beginning, as from the engineering side, obviously our instinct is to ask customers to go and create their like namespace first, and then they go and like register a user in other equivalent services, and then you would get your alias string, and then you'd push to your repositories. But Omar's insistence was that we should try to make the first run experience as easy as possible for customers and remove as many barriers to getting started with ECR Public as possible. And that's where the default alias came from, this auto-generated string. And the other reason why we're naming it an alias is in the future, I don't know if we can talk about this, but we're hoping to be able to,
yes.
once we use, we're hoping to be able to offer multiple aliases. So this is one of those, for example, like you decide you're not happy with the alias you were given, or your name, your company changes names and you get acquired or something like that. We don't want customers all over the internet to have to change their task definitions. So your old alias should still work. We're not going to break existing like URLs, but you're also going to be able to update the alias in the UX in case you need to change it. So that's a reason why we're calling it alias. It's a weird name, but it's intentional in that way.
That's awesome.
And by the way, this is where I could change it just to show that, or request a custom alias, I should say.
Correct.
Yeah. So, and then this goes through a farm of humans who approve or deny. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
No, it's a single human. I'm kidding.
No.
It's Omar. It goes to Omar, and he's the one who single-handedly approves or denies.
He's already rejected me a few times. So.
Anyway, okay. So that was a good segue. Good to talk about the alias, but let's actually just create a repo. So I think, one thing to point out here, I'm in the ECR console. If I go to search, I type ECR, and then Elastic Container Registry. Here's kind of that front splash page. With getting started, I now have the option to create a private or public. So I would say it's pretty clear here, when you're creating, whether or not you're creating a public or a private registry. So I'm going to go with public. And again, so my alias has already been created. Let's call this ECR Public Demo. And I can add a little logo if I wanted to. I don't have a logo to add right now, but this would make sense if I was a company with a cool logo. So here's my description. This is just a demo. And Richard, when I'm checking content types here, so if my image I was creating happened to be a multi-arch image, it was, Intel based, but also ARM. This is for when someone publicly searches, they could see from what I've selected here based on content type, they'd be able to search for an image specifically for ARM or specifically for x86 64-bit, right?
Correct.
Cool.
Is it how they would filter, or can they actually search?
Yeah. So it's on the filtering bar on the side, so you can narrow down the results to the one that you're looking for. Yeah,
which was here.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah. So here I'm going to select. It's only for Linux, and in this case, this is the only architecture that I will support. But here's where I can have some really cool markdown fun and say why, because I'm so cool. And then we can even preview it, which is great, right? So you can preview that. And if you notice here, back in the public registry, there was the about, which is where you kind of explain what this is. And then there's the usage. So this is a place where you could specifically say, here's where you Docker run. Here's kind of the more specifics of how to be technical with this.
Exactly.
So technical stuff. Okay. So I'm going to create the repository, but as you can see, it really easy. And of course this can all be done from the CLI as well, right?
Yes.
Guys, yep.
And in fact, on that note, Docker CLI was updated today. Did you guys catch the version number?
The AWS CLI?
Yeah, I'm
tell
sorry.
you.
Yes, the AWS CLI.
Yeah, I think it's 2.1.6, 2.1.6.
2.1.6. Yeah. So starting with that version, we now have ECR public capabilities built into the AWS CLI.
Yes. So so after I created the repository, you know, I think UX is so important. The user experience when you're in the console, like help me to understand what my next steps are if I maybe don't know. So we have it pops up with a banner, tells you here's the push commands. It gives me the command from the AWS CLI of how to actually log into Docker and authenticate against ECR. So Omar, one thing here to maybe point out and maybe explain is it does specifically when I'm talking to the public registry, the region I point to is US East 1. Can you maybe explain why or yeah, I guess the reasoning behind that?
Yep. So actually, we'll do this in two parts. That made me think of something else to really quickly talk about, and then I'll let Richard talk about this part because it gets lots of fun into how the endpoints were crafted. But if you notice that you still need to authenticate to push, and that's a deliberate choice. You do not need to authenticate to pull, right? So, and the reason for that is, well, it's still a controlled piece of software. It's your software, and so all the features still apply. Use IAM policies, allow different accounts to do push. You know, all those control mechanisms that you're going to need in your workflows to do this at scale. It's there, and so, and I just wanted to call that one piece out as to why there's an authentication on push but not on pull. And Richard, you happy if you want to go talk about the region endpoints here?
Yeah, so in AWS SDK lands, the concept of a region is pretty baked into everything. So we consider ECR public a global service, but even in the CLI, there's still a need to specify, hey, where are these HTTP requests going to? And so one of the things we thought about early in the project was, you know, how do we separate, we call it control plane and data plane. Sorry to get too technical, but what we're doing here, it's part of the push flow, and we're getting a login password, and we consider that part of the control plane. So those all go to IAD. And then for the rest of the stuff, the things like Docker pulls that we really, really care about keeping up all the time, those will go to wherever is best.
Nice.
Awesome. Okay, so so again, I'm going to just walk through this workflow. It's really nice and very simple. It gives me my Docker build command. I have a Docker file. I'm not sure if you folks have ever heard of Funbox, but Docker Funbox is just a bunch of cool little fun things. Nyan Cat, there's ASCII Aquarium. It's just like it's awesome.
Does it have the Jeff Bar purple thing that Martin Baby did in his blog? Because that was a fun one too.
It doesn't, and I was going to use that, but the purple hair didn't show up in my terminal, and I didn't have time to troubleshoot it.
I did some troubleshooting on that one and can tell you the secret later.
Thank you, Brent. I can always count on you. So I have the Docker file in my directory here. Again, for this example, I'm just pulling from an upstream public image. So we're just going to build it. And then going back to ECR, it gives me a tag command. So I'm tagging it with the ECR URL, alias, and then my image name and tag. So I'm just going to copy that. And then we're going to push it. So I'm authenticated, which I just did earlier. Now let's push that image to public ECR. And we should see that, and this image too, by the way, is a pretty big image because it's just loaded with a bunch of fun stuff. So that's going to happen. And while that happens, let's close this. And at what point would I be able to see this image in the public gallery? When?
Immediately.
Nice.
Immediately. Okay. Another one of those design choices and experience choices we made early on was at which point do you want to be in the business of gating software being collaborated on? What is the purpose for this in general? And our thought was, if a developer is willing to give it, and it is a public API that you're sending it to, and indeed that's one of the reasons, right? Notice that you're using ECR-public in the AWS CLI namespace. It's a different account set, right? We got feedback saying, look, I should just be able to flip a bit and make my repo public. And then we're thinking to ourselves, well, yes, but to think about the blast radius of that just one single time. And to Rich's point, ECR has been out for 4.5, 5 years now. I cannot fathom the types of IAM policies that have been crafted around the ECR action set, right? It just didn't, it made sense to do this. And so, yeah, you built, it's a very explicit, I'm authenticating to ECR public, I'm pushing to ECR public, it's a public repo, it's done, right? So we're like, there's enough checks ahead. That's good enough, so.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And sorry, one more thing. We were also thinking in terms of like, we have a security first mindset on our team. So at the beginning, we originally designed this to use similar IAM actions, and just to make it easier for customers, your same IAM users can push to either private and public because you've granted them access to ECR. But we wanted to make it an explicit choice to push it to ECR public, just to provide that guardrail for customers and prevent any accidents from happening.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I would hate to accidentally be pushing to ECR private and instead, overwrite something that the public pulls down, millions at a time, and all of a sudden, my software looks broken to them.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I'm going to, since I pushed it from this, I'm just going to create a new instance and I'm going to pull it down. But if anyone wants to actually pull this image down, and what was that Docker run command? This is the one. So let me get this command ready. Oops, Docker run. And then, so I'm going to take, here's my image. Anyone should be able to pull. And while we pull this, I think it's important to also mention that you don't need an AWS account to pull from public ECR. I think it's really important to understand that this is why I think this will have such a big impact on the community. If you don't have an AWS account, you're just testing something, locally on your laptop, you can share in this experience with anyone else, right? So, all right, where did I put that? What was the command? Let's see, and it was aquarium.
That's just a cool name right there. Just like
ASCII aquarium, right?
ASCII.
Look at that.
All right, so if I do this, there it is. There's my ASCII aquarium. So,
oh, that's so cool.
What is this?
And again, I didn't build this.
That's a funtainer.
Exactly, a funtainer. Okay, so here's my image. Let me push this in. I'm going to put this in the chat right now.
Oh,
so feel free.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, Brent.
I was about to, but you go right ahead.
See, now I'm stealing your thunder.
No,
I'm sorry. Good. So this is the image I just created. I just pushed to ECR. Feel free to, pull it down and run that. And by the way, again, this is from, I want to give attribution here to this particular image because it's just the Funbox image. There's a menu of things you can do. It's not just the aquarium, but just in case you don't, you're watching from the car or somewhere else. So you can see here, Docker images. This is a new instance, which is clearly too small to run Docker. I don't know. Oh boy.
We'll let you run bigger instances.
Yes.
I don't know why I chose the tiniest instance. But let's see if I can at least pull it here. Actually, I'm going to try to run it. So I really did choose like the world's smallest image. So, okay, there we go. We're going to be able to pull it down. And look, the network on this particular instance isn't so bad. the bandwidth. So that should be running shortly. But again, this is a brand new box. Just pulled it down from the public, and eventually it'll work.
I love El Switchblade's comment. He's quoting you. If you're watching from the car, no, please don't.
Yeah, thank you. I meant like you pulled over, and that's a great point. I was the internet, they'll get you every time. Good point.
So Alex Masha asked a question that I think it's probably worth going back and touching on. It was, what would be the biggest selling point to attract people that are still going to use Docker Hub instead of this? And my thought was, and this is just my perspective because I'm an AWS customer, but this is, the artifact, especially, one as big as this aquarium is a gigabyte or so. It's going to be closer to me if it's in ECR. So locality to your customers, that's one selling point. But then there's also like, what is the structure? I hate to get into specifics around pricing and stuff like that, but like, how does this work? If I'm gonna offer an image up, how am I going to pay for it? Like, what's the pricing like?
Yeah, that is a good question. Shockingly, I may have a slide for that, which would be great to talk to as a point. Here we go. Yeah, if you share my screen, we go. There we go.
Got it.
That's how we think about using this, and how we think customers could use it. One is there are two dimensions, right? And it's simple. Who pushes an image pays for storage for that image in ECR Public, and we give a 50 gigabytes each month free. And that's, we think, a good amount for most image customers. There was a lot of modeling we ended up doing, obviously, when you come to something like this. Right, and after that, the price is what you typically pay on ECR, 10 cents per GB month, right? So what that means, like, if there were a terabyte worth of public content across all your repos in an AWS account, you're probably giving us, and you can use a calculator for this online, but you're probably giving us ballpark $90 to $100 a month, right? And what that means is we'll put it in multiple regions, we'll worry about the data transfer. That's gives the image, we got that. So that's how we're thinking. What is important here is image owners, developers who put an image in ECR Public, they do not pay when anybody pulls. And that was another explicit choice we thought about, was where does that sit? What that does mean, however, on pulls, where the dimension is data transferred to the internet, and when you pull, everything's to the internet from here, right? It then made us think hard about how you do the polls, and notice that we chose to control polls on data transfer out. So as opposed to something else, like let's say number per minute or number per hour or something like that, right? Because more and more you want to let bills go at scale, realizing that quite often base images are cached on local bills, so bandwidth becomes the place you worry about. And if you can allow customers to pull really quickly, that helps when you scale up or down. And it's fair to say that AWS raising a price becomes a very difficult thing to do, but you can always raise limits, right? Always. Right. And so that's one of the reasons we did it. So what you see is the floor of what we will present in the coming years. It is, this is the floor, so we can only go better from here. Nice. So breaks up into two. You anonymous polls, we don't know who you are, we can't charge you. You get 500 GB each month per source IP. Wow. Authenticated polls, you just have to sign in with an AWS account. That is all. No IAM permissions, nothing. Just tell us you are an AWS account holder, and we will give you 5 terabytes out each month.
Wow.
Free. Right? And if you do the same thing and you're running on AWS Compute, Fargate build, EC2 instance, Lambda, unlimited free data transfer, regardless of region. So wow. You can run anywhere in the world, AWS account, AWS Compute, you've logged in, pull it will.
Wow. So just to make sure I understand it correctly, if I own the image and I'm storing it, then that column on the left, 50 gigs is free. I don't think I would go over that personally. Like for me, I think to my images that I'm maintaining, and I'm pretty sure I'll be under 50 gigs. So for me, it'll be free. Then the right column is the customer. And if the customer is unauthenticated, that we don't know who they are, they're not going to be billed. There's no way to bill them.
Yep.
That source, so that's just bound by source IP.
Yes.
So every source IP is going to start out each month with a 500 gigabyte data transfer limit. I mean, 500 gigs, that's a lot.
Yes.
So then if you need that to be higher, maybe you share an IP at a university or I don't know what, then authenticate. And all of a sudden your account, no longer the source IP, but your account has a 5 terabyte limit that it's working within. So that's fantastic. And that's still free. So still not paying anything for that. That's crazy. And then of course, if you're in AWS, obviously at that point, everything is free for pulling. So wow.
Yes, notice that one of the other takeaways here is that there are cost guardrails here, but they're precisely just for cost guardrails, right? Often you get this inadvertent script that does something, and so that's the reason you put some sort of a guardrail. But the hope is that, and well, it's not a hope, we did a lot of modeling to try and get to some point, was that the experience should show that this is about as frictionless as we can make it, while putting some sort of a bounding box is the best sort of way I can say it,
And then going back to the original question about why use ECR, the last thing I would point to is just the scale of ECR and the fact that we've been running ECR at scale for 5+ years. So even though ECR Public is new, ECR itself has been around for a very long time. And wow, look at that.
Yep.
ECR customers download over 3 billion images each week. Billion with a B.
And it's a fun thing to think about, and it helps. It makes you feel happy that the trust that you're gonna. This is why I think this is why we were talking earlier about cross-region replication, and why Richard and the team want to keep up at night, stay up at night, think about what it takes. But that's what customers expect from AWS, right? This is what they want. This is why they'll give the workloads. This is why they'll run compute. And this is so. It's cool when you can talk about something like that, because it projects the trust that you get your customers and in AWS in general. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, that's incredible.
It's also super humbling as like one of the people that were with ECR from like when we launched in 2015 reInvent, and then seeing it grow so quickly has just been amazing. It feels like you have a baby and you see it grow over time. So there's an immense sense of pride, and shout out to the entire ECR team as well. Like there's so much engineering work, like Adam mentioned earlier, so much engineering work behind the scenes to support these kinds of workloads. So yeah, great job, ECR team.
Nice. And it's such a great product that the Lambda team is really starting to kind of embrace it, and with their Lambda for container image support, imagine Lambdas. I imagine they're now going to be pulled out of ECR as well, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's really cool, being able to store your Lambda images in ECR as well.
Yeah.
And I really quick just wanted to go back to, I had just searched here. So I pushed my image and I just searched for demo, and you can see some people have already created demo images, but let's see. I think this one was mine because I'm so cool. Yeah. So anyway, so you can see it in the gallery.
Technical stuff.
Yeah, technical stuff. I mean, it doesn't get much more technical than that. So, but yeah, this is really cool. Really, it's a really nice, intuitive experience. And yeah, I agree on the, it's good to see feedback on the Lambda container image integration. I think this is, again, something that'll just continue to grow and get better. But yeah, do I get a verified tag? Is this like Twitter? Like, how do I get verified, guys?
Adam's gonna beat me to the verified tag. I can already tell. So
I did request it. It's Adam J. Keller. So Omar, when that comes across your queue, I know it's a big queue. When you see it, just hit check yes, please.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Check the green check. Nice. All right. Well, let's wrap up. Any last minute questions out there from the audience? But what have we talked about today? We've taken a look at ECR Public, including the gallery, which I think the gallery is awesome. Just being able to browse and find, like I said, I went looking for a replacement Ruby image earlier today, found one, and have already made the switch over. So that's super awesome. And then just ECR Public, the interface for pushing an image, creating a repository. It's all super simple, super easy to do. Everyone can do it today. And you can start to store your images in ECR Public or in ECR using a public repository and start offering them out. So it's awesome.
Yes. And I do believe coming up next is going to be the serverless. The serverless team's going to do a recap on all the stuff they've announced.
Nice.
It's just in the past day, which feels like we've all announced so much.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
Unreal. So
yeah, Edge Geek coming up next. So stay tuned. But Omar, Richard, thank you guys for joining. This was fantastic. And we're going to have you back on soon.
Yeah, no, thank you for having us. This was fun.
Cool.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
All right. See ya.
Y'all.